not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Who wants more Timberwolves news?
Latest Timberwolves news. Yesterday was kind of Timberwolves news that just turned into 30 straight minutes of Giannis trade proposals. We've got more stuff here, more meat on the bone that we will get to on this the second ever episode of Flagrant Howls on the new Flagrant Howls YouTube channel, which thanks to the 3,000 people that have already clicked the subscribe button, with only one episode up on that channel. So thank you guys. Click that like button, the subscribe button, and help us keep growing this awesome community of Wolves fans. How are we feeling today, gentlemen, going into reckless speculation season? We're getting closer.
I love this time of year. This time of year,
how can you not?
NBA-wise, this time of year is arguably more entertaining than what percentage of the games themselves? Not the playoffs, but the regular season games.
Well, I mean, I would be careful even saying not the playoffs. If you ranked the NBA's entertainment assets, oftentimes June and July is number one. And some people would say philosophically, like, games have to be above. But
right.
Every year there's just crazy trades and player movement and speculation. And now maybe some people, like the old school thought is, yeah, it makes it harder to know who's on what team. And isn't there any sanctity anymore that you stick with your team?
No, that's past.
Kevin Durant's like, no, I'm good on that. LeBron.
That's the boomers. That's the boomers, man.
So it is. Yeah, by the way, a shout out to our friends at Butcher and the Boore for feeding Wolves fans throughout the season. But if you're looking for a great spot to stuff yourself, Butcher and the Boore.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And guess what? The NBA offseason is great for speculation, but this time of year it's also getting nice outside. And may I recommend to you, this is from Sports Dad to you, that you check out the Butcher and the Boore North Loop new patio. So how would you like this? You're dining Southern style hospitality. We're talking house smoked meats, hand cut steaks, fresh seafood delivered to you on a gorgeous Twin Cities evening on the patio. Craft cocktails as well. Absolutely fantastic. If you are going to a Twins game, Butcher and the Boore is a perfect place to stop in pre or post game. The patio, absolutely a perfect place to spend an evening. Butcher and the Boore. Keep that in mind when you're planning an evening out in the North Loop.
All right, boys, let's dive into the latest batch of Timberwolves news here, okay?
Latest Timberwolves news.
Brian Windhorst kicks us off. So he went on First Take this morning and said the NBA offseason is going to happen faster than normal. Shams has cleared his calendar, and he's preparing to work his hardest around the draft, which is in 2 weeks, by the way. You're going to get action very, very soon in the National Basketball Association.
Yeah.
So be it a Durant move of some kind. There's other things percolating out there. Windy is saying be prepared here very, very soon.
When does the legal tampering period? So you can't officially sign until like June 5th or June 6th. But I believe that the legal tampering period for free agency in the NBA starts in late June.
June 30th.
Oh, so yeah. I think as Timberwolves fans, what's difficult is, for so long, the Timberwolves were a non-factor in the playoffs, that the season would end. You would have this sort of cushion, right?
Like 3 months.
Yeah, where the NBA playoffs were going on, but there was nothing involving your team. Well, when you make consecutive runs to the Western Conference Finals, guess what? Season ends, speculation begins immediately.
It's just inject it straight into our systems. So let's get to some of the Kevin Durant stuff here, okay?
It's the latest Timberwolves news.
That's right.
I'll cut some of those. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, please send some in.
Got to mix it up.
All right, we had a really, really juicy submission to the Flagrant Howls anonymous tip line. This is now the second one here in the last couple weeks. And we are a platform for the people. So we will vet these, but if you have information, if you have a friend's, cousin's, brother's uncle who played rec basketball with an agent who represents a star player, and you have information on what the Timberwolves or the extensions of the Timberwolves may be thinking, you can send it into the Flagrant Howls anonymous tip line. There's a feedback tab in the Score North app. You can email us, and we'll vet your submission here. We're not just going to read everything, but we'll probably read like 80% of these because it's fun, and why the hell not? And by the way, the Purple Daily anonymous tip line is batting at least 500. We started tallying that up last week. I can't, in good consciousness, read this entire email. Like, Dex, you sent this to us. Like, I would feel like I'm outing multiple people here. Like, I would get people in trouble if I read this verbatim. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But let's just say the nature of this email. I'll read you an excerpt from it, like a very, very small snippet from this, because I don't want to out any of the parties. I don't want to get anyone fired or in trouble or anything. But a Flagrant Howls anonymous emailer has it on very, very, very good authority, based on a conversation with somebody who would absolutely know, that the Timberwolves thought they had a done deal for Kevin Durant at the trade deadline. And it was Phoenix that got cold feet at the end. So it kind of came out of nowhere on February 6th or whatever that date was, that, hey, the Timberwolves made a last-minute push. Like Windy and Shams and these guys are like, the Wolves came flying down the backstretch. And they were like in the mix for Kevin Durant, but there just wasn't enough time to pull it off, and so whatever. And then the Wolves wind up going to the Western Conference Finals anyways. And I think we had kind of figured, they just maybe jumped in too late, or logistically it was just too hard to make it work with a couple of second apron tax teams. But according to the Flagrant Howls anonymous tip line, it was Phoenix. Like the thing was ready to rock, and it was Phoenix that said, I don't know about this. Not sure about this. So I don't know. Do you believe, on a 1 to 10 scale, do you believe the Flagrant Howls anonymous tip line steam here, and what do you make of it?
Oh, I put it at a 9. I absolutely, I think the problem was the Wolves' involvement in the Durant talks didn't get out. And so, like, it came as this surprise. But that does not mean it's not true. And the Timberwolves do a very good job, as we've learned, about hiding their activities. They operate in the shadows, let's say. And so I believe it completely. I also think that it gives us a pretty good idea of what the trade is. And, again, in this case, my guess is the lack of draft capital killed the trade, right? So the trade had to be Julius for sure.
At that time, especially.
At that time, 100%. Had to be Julius, had to be another young player or two. And my guess is the Suns probably wanted more draft capital. The Timberwolves, unless they could have gotten a third team involved, which they probably tried, couldn't get that. But it's interesting, too, because that means that, because we know that the Suns had a trade to send KD to Golden State, and KD killed that trade. And so now it sounds like, I think KD would have happily come here and played with Ant for the rest of the season, and the Suns killed the trade. So it's interesting how close he came to being moved to multiple teams.
Yeah, and then there's I know Dex is well-versed in the second apron rules, so maybe he can explain it to us. But like when you have two second apron teams trading with each other, you have to match salaries exactly. And so there was chatter that there was a third or a fourth team involved to try and facilitate it. That's where it gets way beyond our pay grade here. I mean, most things are beyond our pay grade, quite frankly. But I think my biggest question is, at the time, at the end of January, now Jaden had started to pick things up a little bit. He really didn't become like a double-double machine until after the trade deadline. His stretch was like February after the deadline, and then into March, where he really blossomed with Julius Randle out. And Julius Randle didn't fully blossom until after he came back from that injury. So my biggest question is, what was Tim Connolly's opinion of both of those players on February 6th compared to what it was maybe 2 or 3 months later, and what it might be here on June 10th going into the reckless speculation offseason portion of the proceedings?
It now makes more sense, too, that Julius likely knew that he was just about traded. He got his act together in a big way, and I think there's probably a lot of things, including his absence, allowed him to watch and sort of get involved in a different way upon his return. But my guess is that he knew. The Jaden thing, I don't know, but I will say this. I think if Julius had been playing as well as he was at the deadline and had been healthy, if Conley could have got Durant, he makes the trade. So like
but I think, but like to do it, it almost certainly would have had to have been Julius and Jaden, or it would have been like Julius plus
some of the younger players,
Conley. But to mathematically to do it, you would have needed to hit a certain.
I don't think it would have been Jaden.
$54.7 million.
I don't think it would have been Jaden. I think it would have been Julius for sure, which actually I'm fine with. And then it would have been some young players, and it would have been like DiVincenzo as well. But then my guess too is you had to have, to your point, Phil, a third team involved, right?
Yeah,
at least a third team involved.
Or it's Nas, because Nas isn't expiring. Could they have? Because there's a little duplication there. Like Nas is, kind of a wing who can knock down some shots, but obviously Kevin Durant checks those boxes and more. It's interesting. It's interesting that they were like you need to send a certain amount of value and salary out, and if they were that close, like how did they stack up the players on their roster in terms of expendability?
First thing, because Julius Randle was still injured at the trade deadline, right? Mm-hmm. Are you allowed to trade an injured player?
As long as it clears, yeah. Like you do a physical, and if you determine all right, we're fine with, what was it, like I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like a hip or something.
Like a groin, right?
Or groin. It was a groin. Tweaked the groin.
The Jazz.
Yeah, it was like a soft tissue kind of a thing.
And then I saw this from DraftKings. Now, this was before this anonymous tip line came through, and now that it's in the ether, I think the odds might be updated a little bit here. But from DraftKings, here are the latest Kevin Durant landing spots. Spurs plus 110. Rockets plus 250. Knicks, Timberwolves, Suns, all plus 700.
Okay.
It's the latest Timberwolves news.
I think that kind of tracks with what the reporting is and the teams that have just better assets to leverage in a trade. A couple other things off of this, because it feels like Durant might be the second domino as teams wait for the Giannis domino. Because if you're like the Spurs or a couple other teams, I mean the Knicks, if you have a chance to get Giannis, you would pursue that before you would bring in a 37-year-old Durant. But apparently this is going around NBA Twitter right now. Giannis did an interview in Brazil, and this is the excerpt I'm seeing is from Eurohoops.net. And he's quoted in this interview with a Brazilian news outlet as saying, "I hope to be back in the NBA Finals soon with the Bucks." So there's a lot of translation here to be done, and I don't know. I'd have to dive in and see kind of the credibility of this outlet. But apparently, and by the way, Windy went on ESPN this morning just to add to this, little Brian Windhorst with his little windy fingers. Mm-hmm. And he said there has been absolutely zero steam or chatter or movement on the Giannis trade front, nor has he formally requested a trade in any way, shape, or form.
Correct.
So as of right now, with 2 weeks to go until the draft, Giannis, who has been entirely loyal to the Bucks throughout his career, very Kevin Garnett-like, where now Giannis won a championship, KG did not, but where you start to look around and he's 30 years old, and Lillard's making $50-some million, and he's going to be shelved all year with the Achilles injury. There's almost no way to make that Bucks team a true NBA championship contender. So I think it's the people around him, like media, fans, and even maybe some people in his inner circle that are like, dude, you might have 3 years of prime left. You want to waste one in this current situation? But apparently, to this point, that first domino is not going to fall, and that would make then Kevin Durant seemingly the next domino.
I think the important thing too, though, is to read the roadmap of what the Giannis camp is doing here, because it's very strategic. Okay, so again, the only reporting being done off of this was Shams' report about a month ago now that Giannis was open to playing elsewhere, and every ESPN show was literally handcuffed into saying that. Like, I never heard anyone say, "Oh, he might be demanding a trade here." Like, they couched it. So clearly Shams was told, you can report this, Shamsy, but you're going to do it our way. And because it was very specific of open to playing elsewhere. Okay, is he demanding a trade? And that never came out.
Yeah,
I think that was a classic trial balloon.
by Giannis's camp.
By Giannis's camp. A classic trial balloon. Like I never, like they clearly told, I mean, this is new age scoops, right? The new age scoop, because back in the old day, if a reporter got this, it's like, oh, I think he's going to demand a trade. And then you talk about that. And that's like, okay, I get that totally. But this was very calculated. And basically, the new age guys like Shams work as entities for the teams. Like he's doing the team's bidding, or he's doing the client's bidding.
Yeah.
And so like, this is where this is like the Durant thing's going to happen. Like we know that he wants out. Phoenix wants him out. It's going to happen. The Giannis thing is like, if there's steps here, that was like step one.
And he's clearly wrestling with it, just like Kevin Garnett wrestled with it back for probably 2 or 3 years. It was like, all right, there's just no way. As long as he was on the team too, they were never going to be bad enough to get like the number 1 or number 2 pick.
Right.
Unlike like the Spurs got lucky with David Robinson got hurt in the late 90s, and the Spurs were bad, but not worst team in the league, but they were a lottery team, and they win the lottery and they get Tim Duncan. And it's like the Wolves never had that sort of thing happen toward the end of the KG era to jolt it. So like to me, the only way the Bucks can get out of this, like they're going to be too good with Giannis unless they get super lucky, like barely miss the playoffs and win the lottery. There's really no logical way right now to add a second star next to him that would be good enough to carry that team up, unless they can just get really good at filling in the cracks of that roster. But it's a weird situation there for him.
What if the trial balloon came from both sides?
I don't think is there any like the
But
Bucks?
I'm saying it was so soft. Like it wasn't. It wasn't like there was a falling out. It wasn't like, I mean, it's literally like, let's throw this out into the ether and gauge reaction.
Yeah, no, I think it was from Giannis's camp just to see.
Makes
like,
sense.
All right, but he's also he's trying to play both sides. It feels like, where hey, I'm loyal to Milwaukee. I don't want to burn that bridge. So how can we throw this out just to see what possibilities are out there without burning the bridge if I go back? And it feels like mission accomplished at this point if he goes back. Right?
I feel like he doesn't want to be seen as a mercenary, and he doesn't want to be viewed as like it feels to me like he wants to be liked. And if he's like, you know what, let's say we're demanding a trade, he's immediately, oh man, they're a typical player. So it's a very interesting story, but I don't think it's done. Like, I don't think it's going to be like, well, they threw it out there and it didn't work. This to me feels like the first step because of what you said, Phil, which is this. For both sides, I don't know what's going to work again. And they do have a championship.
And this all, by the way, like, just to bring it back to Timberwolves here.
Latest Timberwolves news.
It all pertains to the Timberwolves because they are standing in the queue right now, Tim Connolly and company. How do we take this thing to the next level? Do we just kind of minimally tweak things, try to bring the band back together and give Terrence Shannon Jr. some more playing time, get Anthony Edwards a mid-range game?
Right.
And if that's the case, then all right, whatever. Then doesn't really matter what happens in the game of dominoes of Giannis to KD, Derek White, all these guys. Right. But if the Wolves are looking to make a splash, this stuff does matter. There's a chain effect of other teams that have assets that would be involved. And okay, if this guy's not available over here. So here's just rapid fire a few things, the latest on Kevin Durant. So Wendy said this morning on Get Up, the Knicks are one of a handful of teams that are still expected to pursue Durant over the next couple of weeks. Shams said late last week that the Suns will engage in serious conversations with 4 to 6 teams seriously interested in Durant. The teams that he put out there in February specifically were the Timberwolves, Heat, Knicks, Spurs, and Rockets. I'll play this here real quick, too. So in Phoenix, the big sports radio station down there is Arizona Sports Radio. And the afternoon show, I think it is, Burns and Gambo. Gambo is very plugged into the Suns, the organization. He oftentimes breaks Suns-related and Kevin Durant, Devin Booker-related news. And he had this to say on Friday on his radio.
By Kevin Durant? Because he has a tremendous amount of say in where he's going to end up.
So I do know somebody that has been with Kevin Durant recently. And Kevin Durant and this person talked about the Spurs.
Okay.
And that's where I mentioned the Spurs. Now, this is, I don't want to say who, but, again, somebody that Katie knows and trusts that was talking to KD mentioned the Spurs. He mentioned the Spurs.
So the odds that Declan threw out, a lot of the steam here is kind of Spurs. Maybe 1 or 2 years of young Wemby next to Kevin Durant, and that could be interesting.
Yep.
So Jay Weinbach NBA on Twitter threw this out. A trade package from the Spurs for Durant would most likely include Devin Vassell, who's like a 6'4", 6'5" offensive-centric wing player, can shoot, 17, 18, 20 points a game. Harrison Barnes, who's a 33-year-old, just good veteran player. You'd also need some salary matching in here too. And then the number 14 overall pick. Durant's camp reportedly views San Antonio as a preferred landing spot, and there's been reports of mutual interest since the trade deadline. Bill Simmons is saying he thinks a deal might be done between San Antonio and Kevin Durant. But just hypothetically here, let's say the Spurs are offering a really good 24-year-old wing player, a good veteran, like just a kind of a piece to help fill salary in Barnes, and the 14th overall pick. The comparable Timberwolves package here would be Jaden McDaniels, who I think he's a better overall player than Vassell, but Vassell's a more established offensive force to this point. So you could say that those two are kind of, and they have basically the same contract too, like $26 million a year.
Sure.
So in terms of like NBA value, Vassell and Jaden McDaniels would be in a very similar bin. Would you match that type of offer for a 37-year-old Kevin Durant, Jaden McDaniels, and the 17th overall pick?
No, I'm not. I told you before, McDaniels is off the table for me, and because of, again, the lack of draft picks that the Wolves have, I think he would have to be involved now, especially like if it's the Rockets, the Spurs, the Knicks, right? Like there's a lot of teams that can and probably will offer more. I'm out on that. I'm out on that because there is a plan where the Timberwolves simply address their needs. Like they need someone who can handle the ball instead of Conley, who will be back, I think, as a backup. But like that's a doable thing. This is a pretty good roster. Like you've got some nice pieces. I am not trading Jaden McDaniels to a Western Conference foe for a 37-year-old Durant, who I don't know how much is left in the tank. He's a marvelous player, but he's going to be pushing 40 here soon. And the other thing too is bringing in Durant would be a trade where you again would have to juggle your roster significantly for the third time in 4 years,
and then juggle it again, by the way, in a year or two because he's 37 years old.
100% out, Declan.
So if that happened, let's just say that evidence is in front of us. That's exactly what the price is for Kevin Durant. That's the sticker price. Are we ripping Tim Connolly for that trade? Because we've at times said, okay, wait, let's look at the grand picture of things. As Timberwolves fans didn't like the Gobert trade. Whole fraction of fans hated the Cat trade on the surface. Would it be the same type of reaction? And also, would we immediately rip that type of trade?
I would, and it would be the first time that I've ripped a Tim Connolly trade. Because the other three big ones he's made, the Gobert, then the D'Lo for Conley, and then the Randle for Cat. Out of the gate, I personally saw the vision for those, love those, whatever. I would criticize this, which means I don't think he would if Jaden McDaniels had a year or two left on his deal, okay, you're not price is going up at some point. He's locked in for 4 years. For tens of millions of dollars less than the Supermax contracts that are out there. So it's an incredibly valuable contract that I think you would only move for a superstar in their prime. So for those reasons, I would say if you're going to put Jaden out there, there's got to be over the next year or two even, there's got to be other younger assets that you could get to pair with Anthony Edwards. So, yeah,
I don't think Tim makes that trade.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see him... Do I see him giving up McDaniels at some point potentially in a trade? Yes, I could. Do I see it for Durant at this age? No, I don't.
A couple more things for you here. Now, if it was Durant and you could guarantee that he would work with Neos Elite Performance to feel like he did when he was 29 years old, then I would maybe change my mind.
Well, I would tell him right now, Kevin Durant, no matter where you're going to play, may I suggest that you check in with our friends at Neos Elite Performance, because you know what they are going to help you do? They're going to help you feel like you are 22 again. Exactly. They're going to make you feel great. How? Because they work through cutting-edge regenerative medicine and cellular IV therapy that's designed to get you going again without invasive procedures. White glove service where they're going to come to your home. There's no trips to the hospital, no trips to the doctors. But you know what? If you've got shoulder pain, knee pain, back pain, they are going to stop the suffering. They are going to get you back on the golf course, perhaps, or in Kevin Durant's case, the basketball court. They're going to get you feeling like you did when you were spry and young. And they're also going to give you a deal if you just bring up our flagship show, Purple Daily. You're going to get $500 off a cellular IV therapy treatment. No surgery, no downtime, just results for guys like KD and you. NeosElite.com, N-E-O-S Elite.com.
Who wants more Timberwolves news?
That's right. We do. You do. You know you do. I'm going to throw this one out. This one came across from the real NBA Central account, not the Central, not Central.
That's a hard one, man.
And it's via NBA Sarah here. So the Utah Jazz, who have kind of said we're done tanking. We want to actually win here, but they're also like Lauri Markkanen is apparently available, and then there's this one. The Utah Jazz are expected to listen to trade offers for Walker Kessler. Who the Timberwolves loved and drafted a few years ago, then immediately traded for a better version of Walker Kessler at the time, Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
Interesting. I brought this up just because I think in any big trade, it's possible that Utah, with all their assets and things, could be a team that gets involved as a third or a fourth team. Mm-hmm. And I could see like Walker Kessler getting swept up in one of these trades. He does have 2 years left on his rookie scale. 1 year left, it looks like, on his rookie scale contract. $4.8 million. I feel like there might be another year in there too. But he's like a cheap, really good 7-footer who can rebound. Yeah. And he's 24 years old. There are big men out there. If you decided to trade Rudy Gobert and just, all right, it's been a great little 3-year run, but we see some of those defensive rebounding metrics plummeting and the athleticism's not quite there. I could see them pursuing any number of big men available with their mid-level exception. I could see them bringing Walker Kessler back in the fold. So, like, if there is life after Rudy Gobert, whether it's a Walker Kessler or like a Clint Capella who's out there as a free agent, there's like stopgap type guys. But interesting that apparently the Jazz are listening to trade offers for this double-double machine in Walker Kessler.
Oh, I'd take him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and you get he doesn't have, play him 20 minutes if needed. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a guy. Doesn't even have to start for you if you'd want to bring him off the bench instead. And then this came across. I think this has kind of cooled in the last few days, but I wanted to bring it up to you guys. The Knicks are trying to potentially trade for a head coach. And Ian Begley, who covers the Knicks very closely, he threw out the nugget that Jason Kidd is on their radar, and that's the one that's kind of risen to the surface, that they might be trying to facilitate a trade with the Mavericks for Jason Kidd.
Yep.
But Chris Finch was on this list. Ime Udoka, Jason Kidd, and Timberwolves coach Chris Finch. There is some precedent for trading for a coach, including Jason Kidd is one of them. Back in 2014, the Brooklyn Nets and Milwaukee Bucks swung a trade, sending Kidd from Milwaukee to, Brooklyn to Milwaukee for 2 second-round picks. Now, Brooklyn, he spent 1 year in Brooklyn, and they got to the second round of the playoffs. And then after that 1 year, he wanted some more control and power and probably saw a young Giannis, I guess. I don't know. And then the Celtics traded Doc Rivers to the Clippers for a 2015 first-round pick. That was well after the Celtics had been kind of knocked down a couple pegs from contending. So in this instance, you've got a Western Conference Finals back-to-back coach here.
Yeah.
If the Knicks said, and I'd have to go look at their stash of picks, we'll give you a first-round pick for Finchy. Would you at all listen on Finchy offers?
Oh, boy.
Just throw it out there. Hey, this is the Knicks. Hey, it's your old friend Gerson.
Yep. My initial inclination is no, but then if you think about it, it's very plausible that they could sniff around there. And then my question becomes, okay, who replaces Chris Finch? I mean, it might be a guy on the bench already.
Well, Mike Nori,
Mike yeah,
Malone,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true too. I mean, Conley could go get his friend. I mean, Mike Malone, in my opinion, is, and I might be totally wrong here, but I don't think he's going to get a job because there was so much bad press and after he left Denver about how he was unworkable, and then they had success subsequently after he departed. So, do I think it's totally implausible that this happens? No. Do I want a first round pick? Like, would I make that trade? I would personally not. I think Chris Finch done a very good job.
Yeah, there's definitely been some things to poke at with Finch, and I stand by those. The clutch time stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
The rotations being way too tight in the regular season, even the postseason.
Yep.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, he's developed the hell out of Anthony Edwards and Jade McDaniels and Naz Reid. And this team is one of the 5 to 6 best teams in the NBA, if not one of the 3 to 4 best teams in the NBA when they're playing at their best. So.
Yeah. Some of his strategic decisions can be questioned. I think what can't be questioned is what he has meant as far as the cohesiveness of that team and keeping things together.
Yeah, there's some of the tactical stuff is it's easier to see and criticize and second guess, but the culture building stuff is mostly behind the curtain, but equally, if not more important in professional sports. And he's been so far brilliant at that through the first few years.
Yeah, the Timberwolves have had some, I know you're going to be shocked by this, it's breaking news, bad culture through the years.
Yeah, just a couple times. Just a couple times. Randy Whitman, one of the legendary culture builders, Kurt Rambis.
And Witt was another one, and I'm not drawing a comparison because I don't know this, but if you recall, like there's always an assistant coach, right? Like Mike Nori, he's going to get a head job, just watch out. And Witt was Flip's guy. Yeah. And so it was always like, well, Witt's going to get a job. Randy's going to get a job somewhere. And oh man, some people are born to be assistant coaches.
And that's fine. You can still make a very good living.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, if it's like, oh, Chris Finch, who cares? Take the first round pick and promote Micah. It's no problem. It's like, you got to slow that roll a little bit until you're absolutely sure.
Yeah. Amen. So,
latest Timberwolves
and then
news.
The only other thing before we say goodbye is Doogie reported last Thursday on Mackey and Judd that he's hearing no go on Darius Garland and Timberwolves. If you're wondering, would they swing a trade there? And then the news came down that he had surgery that will require a 5-month recovery, which pushes you up toward the beginning of the season. So it might be hard. Cleveland's looking to do some stuff, but it might be hard with that recovery to swing a trade for Darius Garland. So just something to add to the pile of Timberwolves news. All right, boys. Thank you guys, all the audience, for clicking that subscribe button, the like button on this new Flagrant Howls YouTube channel. Apple and Spotify, your experience is going to be the same, but you can help us out by giving us a 5-star rating and a positive review. Plenty more this week on Flagrant Howls, a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.